You'll hear it, boys. Super. All right, welcome back to Virginia Free Interviews the Candidates. We have an incumbent who was uncontested this year, which he is probably very grateful for. I don't know if his family is, but I'm sure he is.
They are, especially. They're more so than
that's
I
good.
am.
That's good.
I mean, you get into the campaign mood and you kind of get excited about it. So, but they are like, no, they know they've gone through it once. That's enough for them.
And that's something a lot of people don't understand about politics in particular, isn't it? That the strains on a family are pretty intense. And I'm sure you experienced that because Virginia politics never lets up.
Right.
You and I last night we had a nice conversation at the Fairfax, the Northern Virginia Chamber gubernatorial debate last night. I get home a little after 10 o'clock. And I'm, these are late nights and they don't stop right after the Trump-Clinton election. Speak to that a little bit.
But the Trump-Clinton election?
No, just the grind of Virginia politics.
I mean, it is grind. There's no doubt about it. I've moved my parents into our house, and that's been a year in the making. And it's really been a blessing because I get to see them all the time when we were talking, and they stay up late at night, and they're night owls. And it's kind of like having two new teenagers joining my daughter, my wife, and I. But it's really terrific. And it was interesting. Last night, my dad said, it's kind of a lonely job. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, this being a delegate. Because I see you going out every evening after dinner, sometimes missing dinner. You're coming home late at night, and you're all by yourself. I said, once I get to wherever I'm going, I'm not by myself. But yeah, there's a lot. It's like a lot of jobs though. No job is a 24, is an 8-hour day. You really, I would love to have a job where at the end of the day I'm saying, wow, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow because I've done it all today. I mean, that seems to not happen in the modern, in our modern day technological world and everything with internet. And look at us here on video together. It's difficult to do that. And the delegate job, there's a lot of competing interests for your time. You've got everything from your from PTA meetings to this weekend, for example, I'm going to go down. I've got a local fundraiser for a young woman who was killed a few years ago down at UVA. She was a constituent of mine, Hannah Graham, and they're going to do a fundraiser for her softball. She was a big softball player, and they're doing a fundraiser for her and for some local charities. It's in her memory. And so I'm going to try to get to that. But before I do that, I have to go down. I promised the Horse Council, of all things, that I would come down to Woodstock. So I need to talk to Delegate Gilbert and let him know I'm coming to his neck of the woods. And I was and they're having I guess they have in September on Saturdays, they do a race. They have a race card, and they want me to come and check it out. And so I said, my uncle was a steeplechaser, and so I've always been an avid fan of horses. So anything to help help the horse industry, I'm supportive of.
Which is probably not as big in the 44th district as people would think.
Sadly, we lost our last. No, we still have one little horse farm that's about to go. Yeah, yeah, so kind of sad. We had two. Now two.
Well, Paul, the reason we're here today is we normally don't interview uncontested incumbent delegates, but you had the distinction last year of being number 100 in the Virginia Free performance rankings. We use a model called differentiation to rank our members of the General Assembly. But this year, you jumped 80 places, 20, the most improved Democratic delegate. You jumped 20 places. Tell us about your introduction to the General Assembly, your performance last year, and what you did to raise your performance. Because what we're about is getting everyone to improve without being partisan, obviously, but there's that you've made a dramatic leap.
Well, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to know exactly why I made the leap. I mean, specifically because you have you don't publish any kind of ahead of time. You don't publish bills that you're looking at, and so it's really more of I think a lot of people don't understand that about the House of Delegates. Especially in Northern Virginia, we're all oriented around the U.S. Congress, and in the U.S. Congress, you have a big staff, you have a lot of briefings from your staff, you have talking points, you get all these great things that we don't really, we have to rely on lobbyists, frankly, and they do a great job of helping us with that. But they also have a lot of time to vote. And so when you're down there, you almost have to be instinctual about how you're gonna vote. And when I went down there, when I got elected, I had a tough primary, and everything was very hyper specific about the 44th district. It was really like running a mayoral or a supervisor kind of race, because we were talking about things that really affected us. And so then you get down to Richmond and you realize, hey, it's not just Mount Vernon and Lee and Fairfax County. It's a big Commonwealth, and we're all in it together. And that's really, I think, that was really my evolution, was from a very, a delegate that was concerned solely and wholly about his own community. And that's why I ran. I mean, I ran because this is where I grew up, and I really enjoy I enjoy being the representative for my community, because I know I can do good things for it. But I also found a very big Commonwealth that has a lot of challenges, and so I'm trying to help out. And I think you can't help but to become a little bit, to grow in your evolution there, and that's probably what happened.
Well, I think you hit it on the head there a little bit when you talked about being instinctively pro-business, pro-economic growth, helping other areas of the Commonwealth grow their deal with their problems. South Side's very different. Hampton Roads is very different than the 44th. Southwest Virginia very different. Shenandoah Valley, where you're going to in Shenandoah County, and Gilbert's district. And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do is to create that instinctiveness, but do it in a collaborative way, not a punishing way. We don't endorse. We want people to gradually and effectively change their perspective and their outlook so that they do work together across party lines. And that's, I think, been reflective in your performance improvement. And so hats off to you. Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I've always considered myself very pro-business. I'm pro-worker and pro-business. I think the two go hand in hand. You can't have a good business climate without a professional workforce. I'm an employer. We have 71 employees here, so I know exactly what it's like to run a business. And it's really difficult when you're a delegate as well. But
Right.
it's that's another challenge altogether. But so I have that business sensibility, and and here in the 44th, we're working on attracting better businesses as well. We're going to be redeveloping our Richmond Highway corridor, and that's going to have a big impact. So a lot of what I need to do is bring some bacon back to the 44th so we can get that road improved.
Well, that's the beauty of politics. I think we might have discussed this last night and talked to so many people I can't remember. But it's seeing what the other person sees, and if they don't know the 44th and its concerns, they're not going to pay attention. But you have to open up to get stuff done. That is a requirement, to get that transportation money for that Route 1 corridor. I think it's a Route 1 corridor, is a Richmond Highway.
Right.
You have to be able to see what Chris Jones sees in appropriations, or Ron Villanueva sees in transportation, right? And that's just the House side. And then you have to go deal with the Senate guys, and you don't get about 2 weeks with them after crossover, which is part of the evolution in being an effective member of the House of Delegates. So that instinctive nature that you spoke of prior to us coming alive here, I think really goes to the heart of what is good about Virginia governance. When you get down there, it's very different than the campaigns. Is that true?
It sure is. I mean, we're pretty collaborative. If you look at 85% of the bills are both parties are supporting. They're bipartisan efforts. It's really, it's really about 5 or 10% of the bills that kind of suck up a lot of the oxygen in the room that we have a lot of heartburn over. But they're not the ones that concern the economy as much. They're not really big, impactful bills. So what I'm trying to do is really, I mean, my focus, you're going to be very happy to hear this. My focus this cycle is going to be on infrastructure. So I'm trying to, isn't that great? Yeah, and really it is. I mean, last night we're going to talk about the debate a little bit, but one thing I was disappointed is there were no questions about infrastructure, and there was very little discussion about it. But Virginia's got I think we have a C- rating, another rating group out there, the the engineer. What's that group called? I think it's the I had written it down. I had to know. Oh yeah, the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Oh yeah.
They gave Virginia a C- for its average infrastructure rating. And I was
Really?
talking to some folks at Verizon recently, and they're also worried about the electric grid, that and the security of that. So we're going to have some other bigger challenges that are going to affect everybody from Abingdon to Mount Vernon. And I want to do what I can to improve the infrastructure, and that improves our economy.
Well,
And
I'm
that
glad
also
you.
is good for jobs.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up because the intensity of politics these days seems to be on either side of the aisle to defeat infrastructure improvement, whether it's through revenue increases for roads, tunnels, bridges. You get the grid, cybersecurity is part of our infrastructure, healthcare is part of our infrastructure, K through 12, higher education. The part of that's a critical part of the economic infrastructure of the Commonwealth. And when people, the big, I guess the big new shiny in Virginia is the possibility of getting an Amazon second headquarters for North America.
Right.
And Virginia would be a logical place, one would think, on a variety of levels. But you start going, okay, where can it fit? Because 50,000 people just don't show up and start working. This is a long-term, multi-generational play by, what's considered to be one of the world's largest market cap businesses. It can't just fit everywhere, and we have to be ready for that. And the infrastructure is critical to that.
Right.
And I don't know how Hampton Roads does it, and I know you probably don't want to go there with the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, but there's no gas available for Amazon in Hampton Roads. And so when you go, hey guys, I need some road money for the Route 1 corridor, they go, really? That's great. We need gas to fire up the Amazon communities.
Right. I mean, that investment has a huge multiplier effect. I mean, that's 50,000 really great jobs that are also going to spur, maybe 100, 200,000 other kinds of jobs that are going to be around that community. So it's those kinds of that investment and trying to get it like an Amazon. Even if we don't get Amazon, there's a lot of other companies out there, and I think our governor's been pretty good about keeping the focus on bringing business to Virginia. And that's what we all need to do. Keep doing that down in the General Assembly and keep that as our focus.
And I couldn't agree with you more, but I guess I want to get to the politics of this thing, because it's not partisan. It's the inability for people to see what the other person sees. It's like the Rolling Stones song. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need. And if we need and want Amazon, we're going to have to do some things that we're currently not doing, which is going to be politically not palatable for certain people in this Commonwealth. Rightfully so. They're going to be upset. They're going to be impacted negatively. But how do we overcome that as a body politic, Paul?
Here, with my 2 years of experience, I can solve that problem. I try. I think everybody has to do their bit, and none of us have a magic wand and can make that problem kind of fix itself or go away. But what I've tried to do is really reach across the aisle and find some commonalities, find some areas of agreement, to listen. I think listening is something that is a lost art down in the General Assembly, but we need to listen to each other a little bit more. We need to go. I'm trying to go down. I'm going to visit UVA Wise, I think, sometime in October. I'm going down to Shenandoah, for the Woodstock on Saturday. I'm getting around the state a little bit and meeting folks from the other side of the aisle, learning about their constituency, their district, their challenges, and then letting them know a little bit about what we have up in Mount Vernon and Lee and in Northern Virginia. But we're all in the same little boat here. We need to keep it afloat. We need to do better than that. We need to make it into a world-class ship that we all can be super proud of, and that's going to bring the Amazons of the world into our Commonwealth.
Well, I really appreciate your outlook on that, and I've always sensed that in our conversations. And now that we're doing it publicly, I want to commend you for that. The problem, I guess, though, Paul, for a lot of folks like yourself, even though you're new, you bring a fresh new perspective, which is often very healthy in any organization, is that you have to go home and be able to sell that.
Yeah.
To get back to, and that's always a pull on every incumbent. Is like, well, is this really worth a primary? How much can I do, and how much do I want to be visibly doing? And there's some subtle nuances to that politically. And Lord knows I danced on that razor's edge when I was down there. But speak to going back home and trying to communicate to the political base, and then we'll come in, then we'll jump into the debate last time. But because people need to understand, it's not easy to make these decisions. Oh, you need to have more courage. Really? Well, could you take the saw out of your hands as I'm on the limb?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a it is sometimes you think to yourself, boy, my life, I don't need to go through all this drama. I could really make my life a simple thing and stay out of all of, and not really be a leader. I mean, that's what the problem is when you're an elected official. I don't care what, whether it's local school board or the governor of Virginia, you are supposed to be a leader. People are looking to you to lead. And so that means leading means making tough decisions, difficult decisions, and telling people stuff that they don't want to hear. And so we have, we have our town meetings. We had a lot of people come to our town meeting, the last town meeting, and I tell them I answer their questions truthfully, but I also will bring stuff up and let them know, hey, this is the way it is. We're not going to get everything we want, and we're not going to be able to. We've got to work with the other side. We've got to do these things to make the Commonwealth work and function for us, and then we're going to get, a little bit of, we're not going to get everything, but we're going to get enough. Like you said, the Rolling Stones song says. But sure, it'd be easy. It'd be easy for me to just go home every night and blow off these things. I don't have an opponent. I don't have to go to all these events. I don't have to go to the next Boy Scout event, or the next tonight I'm doing a thing with the Mount Vernon League Chamber. I don't have to go to that, but I enjoy it and I learn, and I'm the community leader, and I need to be out there. I need to hear from my constituents, but I also need to tell them. I need to talk to them. So it's a two-way street. And if you're worried about him being defeated, then you shouldn't be in politics. I mean, and if you're worried about people saying and yelling at you, then you shouldn't be in politics. No matter what, some people are going to hate you. I don't care what you do. You cannot make everybody your friend.
Well, that's a great. I'm glad you had the perspective going in. Obviously, you're an employer because you have to deliver bad news, real news. Look, it's just not happening this year. People don't want to hear it. Everyone wants this. Everyone wants the candy cane, all the time in politics.
Right.
But David Brooks had a
People,
compelling article called the governing cancer of our time is being not able to get these things done in a way that's constructive, that people don't get so hyper partisan and hypersensitive to every issue, and they don't want to see some of the hard realities of what's actually going on.
right. I mean, there's a lot of people who are very focused on one issue, and from both from all spectrums of the political spectrum. I mean, from the left to the right. But when you get a chance and you talk to those folks, you can get most people to see the light, to understand. And so our job as elected officials, and what it's like, you were in there for 10 years. You really need is to take the time to talk to people and to meet with them,
Yeah.
and to really, and then to lead them. You've got to lead them. People want a leader.
And that's really important, because one of the things I've seen, and we're going to jump off right now. If you want to say anything great about the rankings and what you did to improve them, we'll appreciate that too. But it's the ability to have the conversations and the willingness to have the conversations across the aisle, and the opportunity, and that's less frequent in our society.
Right. And I also think it's important that and one thing we do down in Virginia very well is we get to meet each other. We do things socially together. And there's the basketball game. I don't play anymore, but we all participate in that kind of thing. There's a lot of events in the evenings. It's a very compressed period of time. However, we're able to get quite a lot done, and we really do try to work across the aisles. Having to run against each other every 2 years makes it a little bit more difficult. And but you can campaign against somebody but still be their friend and still work with them after the election. And I think that's what we have to work towards. And I feel like there's a lot of good people on both sides of the aisle, and they're willing to do that. We just need some strong leadership to make it happen.
Well, and we also have to communicate it. And even though we're in the midst of a again in Virginia. It's the fall. It's what we do. We have an election. It gets a little testy around here, and so let's just jump to the debate last night. What did you think of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce debate last night with Chuck Todd moderating?
Let's not talk about the moderator. I was
Oh, did
actually
you have a
not
problem with
impressed
him?
with him. I thought he was not
Really?
that good. I
Really?
thought he had kind of lost. It came too much. Sometimes he spoke for too long, and I felt a little bit sorry for the panelists. I don't know if they each got enough questions in. He asked a bunch of them, but it was a little bit. I guess it's a little difficult to keep those guys in check. But I thought it was incredibly civil. It was just what you'd expect in a Virginia gubernatorial debate. Frankly, I've watched a lot over the years, and this might have been one of the most civil, actually. These guys are great. Both of them are nice people. You could see either of them being a governor. And that's the kind of leadership we need. We need folks that can work together and that are friendly. And I've got a phone here. Yeah, I thought it was a good debate. It was pretty substantive. It was quick. An hour goes by very quickly.
Especially in debates.
And I think they both did very well to their respective bases too.
Okay.
There were certainly no gaffes. And they spoke to their. I don't think they changed any minds. There were some things that resonated with me that Gillespie said. I liked his immigrant story especially. He and I are similar in that respect because my mother came over from England, not Ireland, and my father's parents came over from Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic. So, and they did the same thing. They came over for the American dream, and didn't have any money or education, and did very, very well. And I think that is a testament to to our this country and what we offer folks. And I liked that story that he gave. So it was a good debate. I thought it was nice, and we were way in the back, and it still worked for us.
Yeah, well, I like it back there because it's A, it's close to the bathrooms, and B, close to the exit. So I got out of there real quick last night. Didn't want to linger, but no, it was great to see you. But you mentioned the civility of Virginia debates at a statewide level, and that's something I think it's relatively unique to Virginia, or we have lost that way. But are we back on the Virginia way of doing governance and politics? Are we getting there?
I think so. I think we're pretty darn civil, and those two especially exemplify it. I mean, there was places there where you could see they had a softball opportunity to really go after the other guy, and they did not take it. And it wasn't because they're wimps or because they're careful. It's because it's not in their character, and so that's refreshing around the country. You didn't see that certainly last year. You mentioned the election, the presidential election earlier. It certainly was not that way in their debates, in Trump and Clinton's.
Yeah, this was the anti-Trump Clinton debate, wasn't it?
But you're absolutely right. I've said Ralph Northam was like the anti-Trump. Everything that Trump is, Ralph is not, and vice versa. It really is. But that's the Virginia way. I truly believe so. I wouldn't be in politics if it was really nasty. I'm not there to tear others down. I'm here to build us all up. And I think that's true about both sides.
Yeah, I think we in Virginia, because of our place outside of the national cycle, we give perspective and reflection, and we're also a market test. And that's one of the reasons why I'm fascinated by this election, is the reaction to the historic election from last year, as we had the historic election in 2008. I mean, these were moments in American history that changed the direction of the nation. And I'm really fascinated to see how this plays out. Don't want to get down the prediction path right now. Maybe after the election we can do a post-mortem. But what are you seeing on the ground in the district and across Virginia as you go around? What's going on politically?
Well, I mean, this is going to, as you mentioned, we're unique in that we're off cycle. We're not. Everybody else will be running next year. All the other states, for the most part, I think New Jersey is the only other state that has anything going on right now. And so certainly the eyes of the nation are on Virginia, and it's going to be it's all about turnout. And like I said, in the debate last night, that was kind of a focus of both candidates. I felt Ralph was a bit more optimistic about Virginia, and that he did a really great summation and sounded very gubernatorial, and was really speaking to the base and trying to get them out, the turnout up. So it hinges on turnout. It really does. And so who has the best ground game, that's going to make the difference. If you can get the folks that all voted for Hillary last time to vote for Ralph, he wins, right? And it doesn't matter, if the same votes for Trump, because Hillary won Virginia. But it's much more difficult when we have a gubernatorial race, and people are also, it's no matter what, you just can't get that same kind of number out from either side, and that's kind of a disappointment and upsetting. But on the other hand, you want people who are voting who know what they're voting about, and it's our job to try to get them out there and help them and educate them.
And that's the grind of Virginia politics, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm doing a big on Sunday after church. I have a big canvas I'm organizing in my district, and I'm not even, like you said, I don't even have an opponent.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good for your political organization to keep it honed in case you do, because so many, and what we've seen already in some of the elections this year, where they are right now, where the candidates are in the House, is that when they had a couple cycles off, they're just not as crisp as that first race they run. They're not just as energetic, and people aren't as enthusiastic, and that's difficult to maintain, and keep pushing forward.
It's hard. I mean, I've always felt like in local elections that you're trying to convince, if you're running against an incumbent, you're trying to convince people to vote, to basically to fire somebody. When I have, as you mentioned about how sometimes you have to make the difficult decision, you have to fire somebody, and it's hard. Nobody likes to fire. You can have an employee that is the biggest pain, and you will put it off, and it and it's the biggest mistake to do that. You've got to let people go right away. An organization, right? People just won't do it. And so when you're asking somebody to, when you're asking the voters, hey, this guy's been your delegate for 10 years, it's time for me. That's a tough sell, no matter how, unless they've been really bad. Yeah. And even then, voters don't want to fire somebody. So that's kind of the power of the incumbency. But on the other hand, I always tell people you need to run multiple times. And if you look at some of the delegates that have run, like Mark Sickles, he ran twice before he won. Toddy Poehler worked on her campaign when she ran for delegate first time. I was a kid, but she won the second time. It was Gerald Phil was the delegate, and after Frank Medico, and then it was Gerald Phil, and then she defeated him, but she lost that first race by less than 200 votes. So it's very, it's kind of rare sometimes for you to be able to defeat an incumbent right away. So what'll be interesting also is how close some of these delegate races are, and whether they come back in 2 years and run again, because that second time is often the time that they win the race. You could look at John Bell. He ran at least twice, maybe 3 times, but twice for the 1 seat. I think Boysko the same way, right? Delegate Boysko. So yeah, sometimes it takes that second time, but you can't. You need to do well the first time. You need to show that you're a serious challenger. So yeah, so some of these might be I anticipate will be up late on election night.
Well, it's always a late night because Northern Virginia comes in last, and it's going to come down to Northern Virginia. I mean, that's just.
I never understand that. I guess we have so many voters.
Is it?
I don't know. I'm not involved in that.
No, but it's just historic. But I tell you the one locality you want to watch on the early returns is my former city that I represented in the House. Stanton has been deadly accurate for the last eight or 9 cycles. It's just amazing to me how close they are to calling Virginia. Stanton is very much a snapshot of the Commonwealth. And so I commend that to you. And
I need to get down there for their Shakespeare Festival one year.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, go to the Blackfriars Theater. It's a wonderful weekend. It's you got a great hotel next door to it, the Stonewall Jackson. But it's a great trip down there, and I recommend that to you as well. Any final thoughts on what you did for this year, improving one year to the next? We can communicate that to other members of the General Assembly. What was your secret sauce?
I think the secret sauce is really to take the time to listen to all sides. So when the lobbyists come into your office, you want to get every perspective, and then you make a decision. You make your decisions based on a lot more information. When I got down there, it was you just have your election in November. You don't have much time to get acclimated and get ready. You don't, there's a lot to learn, and it's difficult enough to do that and to introduce your own bills and everything else. You're really thrown into the deep end of the pool, and so it takes a little bit of time. And I'm sure, as I we'll see how many terms. It'll be up to my electorate here, my constituency. But I hope to be in the General Assembly for some time to come, and I hope to make a difference and to work together with everybody in the General Assembly and the governor and the Senate as well, and to improve our state and to make it as business friendly and as worker friendly as possible. I really truly believe the two go hand in hand. I'm a big I'm a big supporter of unions. The unions are the ones who bring you very high quality workers, and I think we can have a great business climate and a strong pro worker climate as well. So it's gonna take you a little bit longer to get me up to maybe switch that position, but at this point in time, I really
a lot of that isn't, and you went there, and look, I'm a former employer, you're a current employer. Having a stable workforce is critically important. I mean, policies matter. And that's where the rub is. I mean, we can jump into some other ones that I don't want to do that today. But but to your ethos that you conveyed as far as working together collaboratively across the aisle, seeing what the other person sees before you make these momentous decisions, is far more effective than the campaign slogans. I mean, because we can't jump from a $7.25 minimum wage to $15 floor. You just can't get there from here, and that in your business. But in legislative, if there was a way to get it done, well, let's pursue that. But you can't take it you can't just take a hammer to it. And that's that political nuance that gets lost.
Right, and there are plenty of opportunities to support support workers in other ways that aren't going to make that raise the minimum wage precipitously and in a quick way. And then there's plenty of ways to help the business environment as well.
Right.
And I think we just have to, there will be some new delegates no matter what happens. We have 7 open seats or 7 retirements, right? I think. So we know we're going to have 7 new people. And then I'm sure there'll be a few other Democrats that will get elected. And so my seniority now, I'm number 90 out of 100. So I'm going to be down I might even make it into the 70s before this session starts, but certainly in the 80s. So I'm moving up, and I'm learning. I'm still got a long way to go, and I appreciate everything that you guys do, that Virginia Free does. I think it's very important to keep this as a nonpartisan effort and to continue to educate the General Assembly and to work with all of us, and it makes our life a lot easier knowing that we're all in it together and that we're all paddling the same way. And I feel it's an honor for me to move up from 100 to 80. If I drop down, don't take it personally. I'm doing what I think is right, and
no.
We'll see.
Look, we'll sign off here, but it's relative to everybody else in that year. But what we want to do is create that, you're not. The great thing about this year's ranking is every single member of the Democratic caucus improved from 16 to 17.
Oh, that's good to know.
And that jumped off the page to me. Jumped off the page because 16. Look, let's be honest. 16 was a difficult year politically.
Yeah.
It was not easy on America, let alone Virginia. So anyway, Paul, I appreciate Delegate Krizek. I appreciate you coming on today. Congratulations. Woo! There goes the confetti.
You need that Facebook app where you have the balloons.
I'm just not that skilled yet. in social media. But we really appreciate your service to the Commonwealth, the 44th District, and your willingness to listen and be open to all sides of all issues. I think it's paying off for you. Your numbers show it, and we're just grateful and thankful you came on today to talk more about Virginia politics and all the good that can go on here in the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care. Have a great day. Yeah, man.
Take
care.
Take care.